Howdy folks, welcome to War Thunder, patch 1.45. 1.45 the Steel Generals patch, American Armoured Forces, is finally here in War Thunder. America, freedom, you know, all that sort of thing. Well, it sort of is, and it sort of isn't. While there are definitely American tanks in patch 1.45, you're looking at one of them right now. This is the premium M2A4 of the 1st Armoured Division. And there's another M2A4. And because Americans just seem to love the M2 so much, there's a completely different kind of M2. That's the M2 Medium. The M3 Stuart, which you could be forgiven at first glance for thinking was another M2. And just to shake things up a little, the M13 Motor Gun Carriage and the M3 Lee. So yeah, there are American tanks in War Thunder Steel Generals patch 1.45. But that's pretty much all that there are. What are you talking about, Jingles? I've seen pictures of Shermans and the M103 and the Patton and the Pershing. Well, yeah, sort of. Here we go. There's the research tree. That is what the American Army tech tree looks like. You will, however, notice that with the exception of the Tier 1 vehicles, everything has a sort of angry red background. Why is that? Well, that's because they're not in the game yet. I have unlocked 4 vehicles at Tier 1, which means I should be able to start researching vehicles at Tier 2. Let's attempt to research the M4A3 Sherman with the 105mm howitzer. Nope, sorry, vehicle not available for research at the moment. They're in closed beta test, apparently. Each vehicle will become available as it is fully tested and tuned. We expect to unlock 2 to 3 tanks every 3 to 5 days. Until then, they are available only for testers. You can become a tester and receive access to closed beta test if you complete any of the following conditions. 1. Play the game and complete specified game tasks. They do, of course, completely neglect to inform you in any way what these specified game tasks are. Fill in the closed beta test form or purchase a suitable bundle with a 25% discount. And details of how you can buy your way into the closed beta test are right there. But, well, unlocking 2 to 3 new tanks every 3 to 5 days, we're not going to have to wait long. It ain't going to be long before these tanks become actually available for research and play. So, while it is a little disappointing, Steel Generals is here, patch 1.45. See terms and conditions. You know, at least we can start accumulating experience in the American tank line. We can start playing something other than T-34s and Panzer IVs. You know, there are American tanks here, and they do bring... Well, let me just show you the first thing that I looked at when I logged in to patch 1.45. There. It's not all just about new American tanks. We have new camouflage for Panzer IVs and 3s, new dynamic campaigns available, the Battle of Saipan, the Battle of Moscow, the Battle of Iwo Jima. Let's see, there's more. There's lots more. The Battle of Guam. New camouflage for the Yaks, new camouflage for the XP50, the T-34. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff here. It's not just American tanks. There is a whole bunch more than just a handful of new American tanks in War Thunder patch 1.45. Disappointing though it may be that there are so few American tanks, there are more on the way, and it's not all just about the tanks. There was a lot of fuss made about the new To Battle button. Oh my god, you're turning into a world of tanks. Well, yeah, sort of. But it's just a button. I mean, there are worse things to get excited about. But check this out. Now, clicking above the To Battle button allows you to select the kind of game that you want to get into. So that's a neat feature. It's definitely better than the way it was before. Custom battles here, events and tournaments, of which there is one. There it is, simulator battles only. This was kind of bizarre because when I first loaded up patch 1.45, the events and tournaments button up here said 4 new, and I thought, oh, fantastic, great, maybe some, you know, events to promote the American tanks. Clicked on the button. Nope, sorry, we lied. There's actually just one simulator battle New Guinea campaign available, so yeah. But again, you know, that's a really minor thing to complain about. There are some fantastic new features here in 1.45, including things like tow cables, which I have seen in action. And we'll show you some of that. New maps, obviously new dynamic campaigns. There's plenty of single-player offline content. And while there aren't that many new American vehicles in the game, there are at least some, and there are more on the way very, very, very soon. One of the more interesting new features in patch 1.45 is, well, the M3 Lee is a perfect example. The M3 Lee has two guns. It's got the 75mm gun mounted in the side sponson there. It's also got the 37mm anti-tank gun mounted in the wedding cake on top. That's not all. It's got numerous machine guns as well. There's a coaxial machine gun there, and there's a mini commander's machine gun turret on top. And yes, you can fire them all. That's right, multi-gun support has been introduced into War Thunder with patch 1.45. And it's not just the obvious candidates like the M3 Lee. If you were to pick any of the M2s, which also come with multiple machine guns, then yeah, these also all work. How the hell does that work, Jingles? Well, as is typical, they make no effort whatsoever to explain the difference. You pretty much have to figure it out for yourself. But it isn't that difficult. Just go to Controls, select a tank control, and by default, the main caliber gun, the secondary guns, and the machine guns are all bound to the left mouse button. If you want to change it, change it. It's not hard. So, multi-gun support is here in War Thunder. And while I haven't had much of an opportunity, because as you can see, I still haven't rebound the controls. I've literally just popped out of a battle thinking, what the hell? Multiple guns, what's going on? And found out for myself where the option is to change which buttons fire which guns, but it's there, and it works. It does take some getting used to. The idea that your guns are firing, because obviously the 37mm is going to reload a hell of a lot faster than the 75. But, and it's not completely obvious what the UI is telling you. You can see that you've got your typical reload indicator, which in this case, the main gun on the M3 Lee, for example, is not the 75mm, it's actually the 37. So your default aiming and reloading indicator, the big green and red circle in the centre of the screen, is for the 37mm gun. The smaller circle above the top is actually for the 75mm. But that's just the reload indicator. That does not, as I first thought, the first time I jumped into this tank in the middle of a game and thought, whoa, what the hell are the two circles? That's not actually the aiming reticle, that's purely for the reload. So we're going to go in and we're going to assign the secondary gun to the mouse button 4. We're going to clear the left mouse button so that, you know, the usual firing spam isn't going to activate the 75mm gun, or at least I didn't actually know which gun was which at first. I had to find out by, there we go, and yeah, confirmed. Left mouse button fires the 37mm anti-tank gun, mouse button 4 in this case fires my 75mm. Left mouse button also fires my coaxial and turret mounted machine gun on top of the tank. We're going to close in on this, I think it's a Panzer II, and give him the good news. And it is weird at first. Well, it's only weird if you're not used to already setting up different mouse buttons, for example. Flying aircraft. One mouse button assigned to machine guns, one mouse button assigned to cannons, as a lot of you do, and which I was very, very late to the party in doing. But you absolutely definitely have to do it in your tanks, particularly when you've got multiple guns, as you do on tanks like the M3 Lee. So now we're going to take a couple of shots at a moving target. Now remember, that 75mm gun isn't in a turret, it's in a sponson, so it has a very, very limited firing arc. The 37mm, of course, can continue tracking this Panzer IV-C for the full distance of travel, but pretty soon the 75mm stopped responding to mouse button clicks, and that's basically the game's way of telling me that the target is outside of the 75mm gun's firing arc. I can continue tracking and shooting at the target with the 37mm, of course, because it's mounted in a turret. One thing, however, that wasn't immediately clear was, well, the 37mm shell and the 75mm shell both have different ballistic properties. So when you are firing both guns at the same target, and this mostly applies to arcade battles, where you have target assistance, where exactly are you aiming at? Which of the two guns is the crosshair saying you should be aiming here in order to hit the target with? Is it the 37? Is it the 75? Is it somehow magically both at the same time? I really have no good answer to that. I think it's both. I think that the game does actually compensate for the fact that you're firing two guns and using one targeting reticle. You can also see, of course, that the turrets all rotate at different speeds, so yeah, very pretty. So, multiple turrets. It's a bit like playing World of Warships. Oop, I've said too much. Cool new features notwithstanding, there are still some bloody annoying game mechanics that still exist in patch 1.45, and this is one of them. This is my second game in the M2. At this point I have researched and equipped spare parts so I can repair the tank, but I haven't yet unlocked the fire extinguisher because that's a tier 2 upgrade, and I can't repair the tank while the engine is burning, so all I can do now is just sit here and wait to burn to death. I got to admit, I do have a hard time coming to terms with the fact that we exist in a world where game developers who, on the surface, appear to be quite sane people, believe that somehow this is enhancing the game experience. What exactly does a new player take away from this, other than that they should probably be playing another game? Well anyway, shortly after being punished for not having played the game enough to have unlocked a fire extinguisher, this happens. Arcade physics. But it does give me the opportunity of demonstrating the tow cable, which is another new feature in patch 1.45. When you do end up in this position, it pops up on screen saying, press 0 to request assistance from your team. Ah, right. Straight away I see a problem with the new tow cable mechanic. Request assistance from your team. Yep, there goes my team. After I requested assistance from them, he assisted me by driving off. Fantastic. So I sat here for about a minute. I couldn't do anything. This was the only other tank I had. And the first one had already burned to death. And then eventually somebody did show up, possibly respawning, and there you go, he's attached the tow cable to my tank. He hasn't seemed to figure out that he does actually need to move his tank in order to pull me the right way up. And I think he was a bit confused. I don't believe he deliberately shot me and tried to take me out. I think he was just trying to figure out what button he had to press to make it work. But there we go, somebody else turned up, and bingo, my tank has now been righted. That is how the tow cable mechanic works. Once you're the right way up, press 0 again to detach the tow cable and continue on your merry way. So you might have to wait a while for a random teammate to actually give enough of a shit to help you out, but it does happen. And it didn't take too long before I was able to have a go myself. Watch as this guy swings to a halt in front of me, I slam on the brakes and try to avoid the collision, but I knock him over. Oh well, never mind. I've got a tow cable. There we go. Attach the tow cable with 0, reverse the tank, tow cable reaches its extension, pulls him over. Bingo. Easy as that. It's not all tanks, of course. While there are no tank destroyers in the American line yet, so no M36 Jacksons, no Hellcats, there are anti-aircraft vehicles. I have to confess to being a little bit sceptical about the introductory American anti-aircraft vehicle, the M13 gun motor carriage, purely and simply because of its armament. It has two 50 caliber machine guns. Now, two 50 caliber machine guns would be an underwhelming armament on a fighter aircraft, and on an anti-aircraft vehicle, well, the Germans and the Russians at least get cannon-armed anti-aircraft vehicles down at tier 1. Two 50 caliber machine guns? I don't know. And yet, it does seem to get the job done. So, War Thunder patch 1.45, Steel Generals, primarily about the introduction of the American ground forces, but that's not all. The Americans also get, well, the Banshee jet fighter. The Germans get a bunch of new tank destroyers. They get the Marder 3, they get the Stug 3G. And that's not all, they also get a brand new Panzer IV. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that's been thrown in patch 1.45 above and beyond the introduction of the American tanks and the new game mechanics like tow cables and requesting repair assistance from your team, as well as the new artillery mechanic, which I mentioned in Mingles with Jingles on Monday. And while it is a little disappointing that we're only getting the tier 1 American tanks in patch 1.45 on release, we're going to be getting the rest trickle-fed to us over the course of the next couple of weeks in a succession of micro patches. Of course, there's far more to patch 1.45 than I've covered during the course of this video, and if you're interested in the full details, then by all means head over to warthunder.com and check out the patch notes. I'll give you a far more in-detail analysis of exactly what has changed in patch 1.45 than I can over the course of this video. Hope you enjoy the game, take care, and I'll catch you next time.